All right, welcome to the first ever recording of the WRF Consulting podcast YouTube channel, I guess is really what it is. My name is Jim Burris, and I'm your host. And this is probably going to be horrible to watch and very interesting to record. So, why am I doing this? I've been in sales for about 20 years as a profession officially. I guess on and off. Really, everything is sales in your whole life. Once you start to learn about what it truly is and what it means, it's really just helping other. There's a lot of definitions, but I guess the main one would be finding a way, people that need help, and eventually solving that problem for them. But you have to communicate effectively that you can solve that for them with your product or service or whatever the solution is. That's like the simplest term if we're going to talk about selling. My very first sales job was, I guess my very first official sales job was commission only. I sold windshields, auto windshields, door to door in businesses in Tampa, Florida, and eventually got into security and surveillance, IT sales. The what and the why. I guess the why is important, but the what is not really the point of this video. And I do want to apologize if for some reason someone does watch this and there's like some shakiness. I'm just doing this with some very basic equipment. I have like my stuff I would have for a Zoom meeting, but I'm being a little animated, so I'm probably going to shake the desk. And I guess the goal for me is to improve with every video as I go. So why am I doing this? I have learned over 17 years, 20 years. I really became a student of sales when I transitioned careers 20 years ago. I worked on automated equipment, think like tech for manufacturing. After I got out of the Marine Corps, I really enjoyed it. I still like that kind of. I don't do it, but I like the troubleshooting and I like to use my mind, right, to think and to solve problems. But when I became a student of sales, I read a lot of books. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the first book that really turned me on to the idea of, hey, you don't have to just do what your family did, in a nutshell. So I got into sales, did a lot of studying Sandler. There's so many things out there, and we'll talk more about those and dissect them. But I became a student of the game, and one of the things I learned, a couple of the I guess key philosophies, if you want to get into sales, or if you're in sales and you want to take it to the next game, take your level, take your skill up, increase your what's the word? The primary field of study, right? So your discipline in your field, right? So there's something called learned knowledge and activity knowledge. So learned knowledge is essentially book, seminar, could be live training, coaching, whatever, that you learn, right? It's, theory, but there should be some practical application with it as far as like role playing, etc. And then you actually go out into the field or the marketplace and you apply what you've learned. So, yeah, a quick example would be prospecting. Let's just start at the beginning of the sales world. Prospecting, right? So your type of outreach, whether it's on the phone, or let's just stick with the phone because I think that's probably what most people struggle with. And this is 2024 when I'm almost 2025, so the phone still works. You learn things like the essence of how to talk, what to say. Some people call it a script. Not here to talk about scripts or against them, pros or cons, but you learn what it is, right? And then you go out and you apply it. And it's very clunky at first, right? And then you get better at it. So there's activity knowledge. You start to put the pieces of the puzzle together. It's essentially like tying your shoe, right? So when you were a kid, I'm assuming you were a kid when you learned how to tie your shoe. You had Velcro shoes, and then your parents bought you some tie. We'll call them tie shoes with laces. So that was the first step. You were initially unconsciously incompetent, meaning that you didn't know how to tie your shoes because you'd always had Velcro. The moment your parents introduce tie shoes, laces, you became consciously incompetent. You're now aware that you didn't know. And then you go on to being consciously competent, where you have to go, whatever that little leftover right, make the ear. I don't remember what it was, but some of you that have young kids, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. And then you get to a point where you can chew bubble gum and have a conversation, and you just tie your shoe. So you're unconsciously competent. That's essentially the learning curve, I guess, if kind of what it looks like in words. So sales is the same way. So there's learned knowledge, where you learn things that you may have not known, or new ways to do things. So there's new information. It's new to you information, essentially. And then you apply it, and then you get to the point where it just becomes natural, second nature, whether you're on the phone and you just say things. You don't have to have the index cards in front of you, or whatever you do to memorize it. So there's that piece of it, right? The learning curve, the learned knowledge versus activity knowledge. And you should essentially go back, like if you're reading a book, and let's say you're reading, I don't know, I've got a couple sales books here. These are personal development books. I've got one here. Right here. I've got a Sandler book, right? So this book is really the only sales book. Honestly, he says it in the book, and he wrote the book, I think, in the 90s. And there's some seminar recordings, I think, from the 60s or 70s, where he's like, you really only need one thing, and then you just have to you master it and you develop it, right? So like I've read that book years ago, and I'm reading it again, right? Because there's stuff in that book that I'll pick up now after 20 years of applying essentially a lot of the information in this book. You go back to the learned knowledge, and it'll be like, oh, this is a new book. It's not a new book. You're essentially a new person, a new salesperson, because of I don't want to get deep in like neuroplasticity, but how your brain works, right? You have new programming, I guess, new wiring in your brain of what you've learned and applied. So you learn it, and then you can read it again. It's like sharpening the skill, essentially. So that's one key part of being proficient and professional as a salesperson. Probably any career, to be honest with you, is just staying up and then constantly learning new things. There's learning new information to you, and then there's learning new information. So that's the first part, right? The learned knowledge and activity knowledge, and how you sharpen your skills. The second part is really talking about, it's more of the why I'm doing this. And who I'm doing this for. My target audience would be small to medium-sized business owners, entrepreneurs that have sales experience or have no sales experience, or you have a sales team and they need leadership, and it doesn't make sense to hire a sales manager or a sales leader at X percentage. Let's say it's $150,000 a year, where you could hire someone like myself to do it, like on a fractional level, where I work with multiple companies. That being said, the other part of the knowing component, the knowledge component, is know versus know about. And I'll make relevant examples here. So I've been in IT sales for 10 years. Different managed service providers. Specifically, the last year and a half, I've been with MSPs in the mid-market space. So one of the things I noticed there, and then it's evident in a lot of other places, there's people that know about sales. There's people like this book, like a lot of people read this book, but they're not in the profession. So they don't ever do the activity to really understand, to know. They know about sales. You can read this book and know about sales. Okay. To actually know sales, you have to do it, right? So it gets I'll say, ingrained in your DNA. Where I'm going with this, and trying to make this not a bitch session, but relevant to business owners. A a lot of you know about sales. You have a company and you've probably done sales at some level, but to really do it at um, a higher level, it's not just a spreadsheet. It's not just a formula. It's not there's some element to it that's a numbers game, but that's very elementary just to say that without understanding how to make the numbers relevant. Let's just say like prospecting dials versus connects, conversations, appointment set. Yeah, a lot of people just say just make a lot of phone calls and you'll talk to some people. That is true, but to really master your craft, to have an understanding, a knowing, is really to understand how to make those relatable, right? Whether if you have a lot of calls and then a lot of not connect ratings or connect percentages or numbers, what does that mean? Or if there is a lot of connect conversation percentages and the meetings are low, um, what does that mean? And how much data, right? That's a big word that everybody likes to use now. Data. We got sales data. So how much do you need to really make a decision? I don't think anything less than 100 days, from my professional opinion, is enough to do any changes in a sales organization without 100 days of data, of activity, right? And then even that has to be scrutinized and managed effectively to get any useful meaning out of it. So knowing versus knowing about. There are a lot of people that know about sales and like to give their input, or they get put in a position of authority, especially in small or medium-sized companies where sales gets put on your plate. Oftentimes it's the CEO. And I understand that at the end of the day, they're responsible for the numbers. But I think you need to look in the mirror and say, if I'm an engineer by trade or an architect by trade, or whatever your profession is, and you get into a leadership role, and then for some reason sales would fall on your plate, do you know it or do you know about it? Odds are you just know about it. In the rare, some cases, obviously, you don't. And right now, if you're someone that's sitting there going like, I know it, but you've never really carried a bag, and been a salesperson, just to understand the psychology of it is completely different. I think it's the world's greatest profession, but it can be very difficult mentally. It's like Marine Corps boot camp. If you're not in sales and you've been in the Marine Corps or the military, you might understand this analogy. Definitely with Marine Corps boot camp, that's my only experience, but it was difficult. Mentally, it was very, very difficult in the beginning. So you just have to have that understanding. And I did just forget where I was going to go with that. To make it relevant, right? So, you can know about, a lot of people know about boot camp because they've watched Full Metal Jacket or they've watched movies about Marine Corps boot camp. But when you go to Marine Corps boot camp, you don't know about it. You know it. You understand it, right? You understand there's a physical component, a mental component. And where I was going with that is sales is the same way. So there's a lot to it. And to effectively manage, I hate the word manage because I don't think most people need managed. They need leadership and they need coaching. And that probably falls under most people's definition as management. But it's not. So I don't want to ramble on anymore about this. I really just wanted to make this video because I'm making 100 videos. I'm going to make one video a day for 100 days just to get better. I don't expect anyone to watch these. If you do, awesome. I appreciate it. Please leave a comment below, like and subscribe as well. As I get better, I think this will be something that will be beneficial to you. And I currently, this is November 30th of 2024. I have an opening where I can coach. I'm looking for 3 companies to work with. I don't want them all to be, I am in the Dallas market. I have experience I'm from St. Louis and I've been in Minnesota. I've sold all over the country, Boston to San Diego, any city that's had an NFL team. I'm looking for 3 companies, mid-market companies. I have a lot of MSP experience, so that would be my top choice if you're an MSP. I would love to work with you. But any service-based business, somebody that has salespeople and then a product or really a service that they deliver. and your sales team or person or organization needs coaching, you need help, you need to drive more revenue, you know they could be more effective, comment below and I'll get back to you if you're interested and we can set up a time to chat. And I would, love to help your organization. If anything, you'll walk away from a conversation that we have together with better questions to ask, other vendors that you're looking at as far as like sales support. So I appreciate it. Like and subscribe, leave a comment, even funny comments, mean comments are funny. Again, this is my first video. So thanks for watching.